Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Edfields Law Podcast. Today's discussion is centered on property acquisition and due diligence. And by property, I mean immovable property. I have here with me my fellow members of the panel to help us discuss this very important topic that addresses all of us or confronts all of us in society. A lot of times, businesses, individuals, even the government undertake transactions to acquire assets in terms of properties. And it's very important to ensure that the necessary regulatory compliances and all adherence and consent and everything is sought. So I have with me Prince. You're welcome.
Thank you.
I have Divina. Are you okay?
Yes.
I have Paul. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's begin the discussion this way. When we say due diligence with respect to acquisition of immovable properties, why do you think is relevant?
So, basically, acquiring an immovable property in Ghana or in general is not just like walking into the market and buying tomatoes or any other thing or even an iPhone. Acquiring an immovable property requires that you look at whom you are taking the title from, whose title you are inheriting, whether the person has the capacity to give you that title in the first place. Because maybe you are acquiring a family property and the grandson of the family head is the one giving you the property without anybody else's consent. You would think you have properly bought the land, but you would end up losing it because you didn't acquire the property from the right person. Due diligence is good because even if you acquired it right, and maybe you acquired a residential area and you want to build an industry, you would not be allowed to put up an industry in that area because you didn't do your due diligence. Now you've lost money acquiring property for the wrong reason. And so you would end up not being able to use the property you acquired. Due diligence is a very, very broad topic. I can go on and on and on and on and on and on. But I think I should end it here so we
Yes. I mean, it's important, as you've highlighted, that it's just making sure all the checks have been made just so that the buyer acquires what he or she intends to buy.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So now let's take it to the point where I think when it comes to land, there's some form of discrepancy as to what we mean by land when we say it's properly so called. So, Divina, can you break down the whole concept of land?
Okay. So there's a common misconception that land is just the physical land, but that is not what land actually is. Land entails the physical land. It entails anything beneath the land, on the land, and above the land. Okay. So when you acquire land, you own the physical land, you own what is beneath the physical land, and you own anything above the land. However, there's a restriction on your ownership.
Okay.
Firstly, we both know that natural resources occur beneath the land. Okay. However, natural resources do not belong to you, even if you own the land. They belong to the government.
You just burst the bubbles of the Galamsey. You made them happy when they heard that
they own everything
and
then the land.
Exactly.
Yes, they don't. So if you find gold on your land or beneath your land, it doesn't belong to you. You don't have any right to touch it or to sell it. Another restriction, it relates to what is above the land. So the restriction is that you do not own what is above the land up to the sky. You just own a portion of that space, which is reasonable for you to enjoy your ownership.
A reasonable portion.
Yeah, a reasonable portion.
I don't think that's fair.
So easy. Let me add this. Something funny happened when I was doing my LLB, and during a land law class, the lecturer was explaining that, natural resources beneath the land do not form part of the ownership when we talk about land. And you see, he was very specific. He said that in their natural state, but I didn't hear. So I raised my hand. I thought I was coming to ask a very sensible question. I was like, okay, in the villages, you see that people go to the farm to fell palm trees, and then they realize that there is this pot full of gold in there. What about that one? He was quiet for some time. He was like, what a stupid question. Is that in its natural state? I said, no. He said, let's move on. Because it is not in its natural state. So what we are talking about, it doesn't include those pots that great grandfathers
have left.
Yes. Yes, they don't form part of it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's come to the regime when it comes to the concept of ownership of land. When we say someone is an owner, properly so called, what are we trying to say?
Okay, so the first thing I will say is that we should be able to differentiate between ownership and possession. People think that when you find yourself on a land, the mere fact that you stay on the land, you have your house on it, suggests or gives you ownership. Possession is you being in occupation, like you occupy the place, right? So possession is not necessarily ownership. Ownership is where you can lay claim to it as someone having what we call an interest. An interest means title. Say you can say that it is for me. That is ownership. There are different forms of ownership. We call some of them very absolute, and then there are others that have limits, as in the duration within which you can call the land yours. Yeah. So those that have definite durations, we have a lease.
Okay.
Let me put it on record. There is no law in Ghana suggesting that a lease cannot go beyond 99 years. There has been a convention that we always put there 99 years. I have seen a lease that is 200 years before.
Okay.
Yes, but so we should put it on record. Maybe anyone who has something contrary to what I'm saying can challenge it so that we all engage it in a intellectual discourse. But until that is given, I'm telling you on authority that there is no law saying that.
Before we go there, let's stay a little more on the possession ownership argument, right? So a lot of times it happens that disputes would ordinarily arise from certain standpoints.
Yeah.
One party believes that, well, I've had possession of this land, so in their minds, it's for them. Is it accurate to say it is a mathematical formula whereby the incidence of possession must also come with being the act of ownership by having title before we can say you're the owner properly so called? Would you agree with that?
Well, possession would not necessarily have to come with ownership, right? Because this land may be for someone who has built this house where this law firm is. But we are in possession now, right? So you may be in possession and will be a licensee, which means you've been given the opportunity or you've been given the right to be here for, say, 2 years. At that very moment, you are in possession. I don't own my house, but now I'm in possession.
Yeah.
Do you see? But ownership sometimes come with possession, where that is why they say possession is 9/10 of the law, which means that's where it starts from. There is a rebuttable presumption that when you are in possession, you are the owner. So in my house, when you come there right now, if I don't tell you that I am renting, you may think that I am the owner. Unless you see me as too young to own a house.
It's possible.
You get it?
You can own one.
So the mere fact that someone is in possession or someone is living on the land will not necessarily mean that the person is the owner.
Okay.
But there are so many instances where the owner has to prove possession, especially where there is no one on the land. You should be able to prove to us that XYZ suggests that I am on it. That is why if you go very deep into the law, where you acquire a land, sometimes they advise you to put what we call economic trees on it.
Yeah.
Or say orange.
Yeah.
Say pawpaw, pear, or tick. Those things. They say plant some trees on it. So you come and then say that I am in possession because I planted XYZ on it and they are still on it. So you are proving that you are in possession. You get it? But coming back to the ownership, like I was mentioning, I was listing those that have limited periods where you are an owner of an interest, and one of the interests is a lease. Okay. And I was saying that there is no law suggesting that a lease should not go beyond 99 years, but it has to be for a definite period. When you have a lease, you should be able to point to whoever is questioning your ownership that I have it for XYZ number of years. It has to be that definite period.
I think the difficulty has always been the convention. People always get or grant leases for almost all the time specific
99.
Yes, 99 or maybe 50. Right? You know, that also affects the minimum number of years a lease could be granted for or obtained, whereby there's actually no threshold for the minimum.
Yeah.
It could be a 2-year, it could be for a 2-year duration, but then it's a lease. But I think we have this conditioning that once we hear a lease, then the duration must be longer than usual.
Yes.
And if I may add
to
to what Derek was saying, there's actually law restricting the period of a lease in respect of a person who is not a citizen.
Yes.
So
Very
if you're not a
important.
citizen, you can only have duration for a lease up to 50 years. And that's it.
Exactly.
In the first instance.
In the first instance.
Okay.
Yes. So that's the exception to a lease.
Okay.
Where you are not a citizen, you are a foreigner.
Okay.
So if you even look at our constitution, there were periods where there were a lot of Lebanese, Nigerians, Indians who were really big in our economy.
Yeah.
So when you look at most of the big companies that are over 50 years, you look at the names and you see that, these are not Ghanaians. It's not proper for me to mention names. But in our jurisprudence, you may see Irani brothers. That one everybody knows.
It's
so you see
knowledge.
those things. But after the 1992 Constitution came into force, we realized that the Constitution had restricted the period for which foreigners can obtain leases, and then converted all those freehold interests that were giving, those who were giving perpetual interest, that you have it till you die or till you don't need it anymore. It converted it into a lease starting from 1969 for 50 years. So all those who had those absolute grants that, you have it in perpetuity, most of them, their leases ended in 2019. So immediately it ended, those lands reverted to their pre-acquisition owners, those who sold to those people, or if they were government lands, they came back to the state.
Yeah. Okay. So staying on, I think a lot has been said about what leases are.
Yes.
Does it mean that once a person obtains or grants a lease, the parties therein would be the lessor, that is the person giving out the land, and the person taking the land is the lessee? Does that mean it's set in stone that if you obtain the lease for a period of 50 years, you must use it for 50 years? Is it possible for the lessee who has now acquired the property to also maybe decide to sell, decide to part of some of his or her interests?
So it is still on those interests you can get. So a lease is just one.
Okay.
Those that are acquired for a specific duration. The second one may be a sublease, which I would have talked about.
Okay.
Sublease, where you, the one who got the lease, you don't want to sell all your interests in it. So if you had 50 years, you are saying that, oh, you don't want to give out everything. So you want to give it out for 20 years.
Okay.
So you are carving some of your interests to another person. So you take a sub of it and give to another person. So in that regard, you, the one who had the lease, you are called a sub lessor. And the person who is coming becomes sub lessee. These are too technical. I don't want us to be going into those ones. So there is a sub lease where you, the one who has a lease, you are giving a part of your lease to another person. Or you can just sell out. You know what these real estate guys have been doing? He buys the land for 99 years and then he stays on it for 5 years and says, I'm selling it. So he's left with 94 years. He sells that one to you and you acquire what we call an assignment. So he has assigned all his interests that is unexpired to you. So those are for the specific durations. And there are some that are what we call perpetually, they are potentially perpetual, which means until otherwise said, they should go on and on. Those are what we call freehold. So the freehold, an allodial title is a freehold. Mostly you find those ones in stools, chiefs, skins, and then families. So most of the family lands are allodial, they have allodial title to them, or they have a freehold. Those are some of the interests that you may get, aside license that you be just given a permission to use it for a specific time and it will get back to whoever has it. Yes.
Okay. Very important. And another recurring principle that is also always occurs in our land matters is the principle of compulsory acquisition. I'm sure the viewers must have or might have heard about compulsory acquisition a lot of times and are very curious about what it entails. So, Davina, what does compulsory acquisition really mean?
So, compulsory acquisition is quite an interesting topic because it's a topic that gives the government power to forcefully take your land. So when you own land, the government can come and say, we need this land for building a hospital, for doing something that is in the interest of the public. That is when the government will take your land forcefully, whether you like it or not. But you are entitled to certain things when this happens. The government is mandated to compensate you for the compulsory acquisition. And if the compulsory acquisition relates to land in which people inhabited it or were settled on it, then the government is also mandated to resettle these people on appropriate land, basically.
Okay. Nice. So what happens in the event where the government compulsorily acquires a piece of land for a supposed purpose in the interest of the public? Because public interest is very vague, right? And the government neglects or fails to use the land for the purpose for which it was acquired. Does the land now revert back to the original owners?
It doesn't automatically revert. You have to take action to acquire it again.
A lot of times they may reassign you to a different property. Okay, that's interesting. The next thing I would like us to discuss now is with respect to the very steps to take when you are undertaking such a transaction to acquire land or property for a client. What are the things that you must consider, you must look at in its entirety to ensure that a land transaction is managed very perfectly?
For me, I would say that the first thing to do is to do due diligence. Due diligence is the first thing you are supposed to do. Know what you are going to acquire from who and when. That is very basic. You can't go and acquire something you don't know. You can't go and acquire something from someone who doesn't own it. You will cry later. I remember, I think 2 or 3 years ago, my dad called me that, his friend was coming to Ghana and wanted to acquire a property around airport. So he wants to talk to him to see if he wants a lawyer. And then He speaks to this guy. He says, "Oh, me, I'm an area boy. Ah, it's fine."
He knows all the facts.
Oh, he paid $2 million for 1 acre. He paid when he was paying. Nobody was contesting him. Oh. The day he was taking bulldozers there, he went there to meet someone building. They are still in court because of no coffee. I'll go chop. He will not allow me to do the due diligence because he's an area boy. And you see, he's not the only one. A lot of people think that they know the area, and because of that, acquiring a land, he can just go ahead with it without doing the due diligence. And that is what costs a lot of people money.
So the key thing is that you would have to verify the title, I believe, because fundamentally, the person selling the land cannot transfer what he or she does not have, right? That's a basic principle of law. So in doing the verification with respect to whether the person has title, or in certain instances, even when the person doesn't have title, whether the person, maybe the person is a third party, has the requisite authorization to undertake that transaction. So what goes into all of that?
Okay, so with this, there are two systems. We have the system of registered land and unregistered land, where the land is not registered, in that the title of the person conveying the land to you is not registered. There are certain things you have to do. You have to make some checks, and you have to ensure that there's an abstract of title provided for you. So what an abstract of title simply means is that it just describes what has happened to the land or what has been going on in relation to the land for a minimum period of 30 years. So we can talk about how maybe person A acquired the land, maybe it was through inheritance, through a will. So it has to talk about the will. It has to talk about when probate was given. It has to talk about when the vesting ascensory was made. All those things have to be looked at. And you have to ensure that the person giving you the land has given you the abstract of title, basically. When it's registered land, I think that is simpler. You can just conduct a search, which here's where I advise you to engage with professionals to do this for you. You can conduct a search at the Lands Commission, and you see the title certificate and all of that.
Yeah. And even to add to that, there's what we call a local search, where you ask around those people. You see, in every community, there are some 3 people that when you need information, you should ask. 1, the drunkard there. Yes. 2, the one who is always sitting
under
the tree or very close to the roadside. And 3, those people who are always informants. Like, that is what, there are people, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Yes. In Akan, say, like, he's always around sniffing for information. Those people,
It's
will give you
actually
useful
very
information.
important because you must not, once you are carrying out such a transaction, you must be very convinced in your mind as to the root of title. You must be able to trace it to, in certain circumstances, the first occupier or the first person who exercised or enjoyed any form of interest. So it is for that reason why in almost every agreement we do, be it a tenancy, be it a lease, be it a sublease, an assignment, there's that root of title to show the series of events that has happened. And is that the only search you conduct? Or sometimes you must also be mindful of if there are certain other encumbrances on the land where the person has title, but then there might be a certain encumbrance over the land. Yes.
Is there a question?
There might be, say, someone has used that land to get a loan.
Yeah.
Yes. That can be one of the encumbrances you are talking about.
Yeah.
Those restrictions or... Yes. So the person used it as a collateral to get a loan. You would have to search with the collateral registry to see if any interest of that nature has been registered. But you see, the problem is that not everybody who uses property to get a loan registers it, even though they know the law surrounding it as to how valid those transactions will be. But some people don't care. But it might bring you trouble. It is always important to conduct that search. Collateral registry, you do it. There are some of the lands too, especially those that are controlled not by the Lands Commission, but by a state housing corporation or company. You will not find anything at Lands Commission if you do a search there. So you would be better served if you do the search at the state housing company. You do that, and then you find your information before you even carry on with the transaction. You are always likely to be persuaded by the fact that a lot of people want to buy, or if you are not quick enough, you sell to another person. If you don't want to lose the land, get what we call a contract for sale down, where you pay some 10% down, which is refundable. You put it in that contract that if your search returns an unfavorable result, then that money has to be returned. If it does, then you pay the remaining amount, and then the conveyance instrument is prepared for you and executed.
Very well. And also, it's important to also do a judicial search. Maybe the person has title, but there's some form of litigation ongoing with respect to the property. Yes. So is it always the case that just anybody is in a position to sell land?
I don't think anybody at all can wake up and decide that I'm selling this land just because he has found a land to be bare and then in nobody's possession.
Some people are doing that in Accra.
That is why there are lots of land litigation. I think if you want to purchase a land and you want to be safe, I keep saying that the first thing you should do is to get a lawyer. If immediately the idea occurs to you that I'm getting a land, get a lawyer. What a lawyer will do, first of all, is trace the title of the person who is selling it to you. The person has to even have capacity to sell it to you. You have to do checks at Land Commission to be sure that it's, first of all, it's not a state land. If it's a state land, there's a procedure to go by acquiring a state land.
Which would be different from...
Which would be different from
So
the
let's say
regular...
the land is like a family land.
If
then
it's
who do
a
I
family
see?
land, you don't take some Obia Nkwanchen person who says, okay, I belong to the family, who has traced the title or how he's associated with the family to a very long... Me or Fadia.
If it's for his uncle, should he not say it's for his uncle? It's for his uncle.
It's for his uncle, but then he does not have the capacity to sell a thing that belongs to his uncle. So what happens is that the person has to be either... So the law says that if it's a family land, it's in the custody of... It is held by the family head.
Mm-hmm. In the
interest of the family.
So he must be like...
So he must be the key player in the transaction. And even that, the law says that he must do that together with certain members of the family. So if you go and buy, there are certain family heads who sell their land on the side, and then it brings up other litigations.
Yeah.
There will be tests.
But even with that, when the family head sells the land, it doesn't mean that the title is now. There's a time period within which the other members of the family must act to invalidate that conveyance.
Yeah.
So when they act beyond that time period, they cannot invalidate it.
Yeah, that is true.
I think most importantly, because you are the family head, does not mean the property is your personal property.
Yes.
So everything you do, you are doing it. Yes, you are just dancing to the tune of the family as a whole and the principal members.
Basically, you are doing it in the best interest of the family. Yeah. Yeah. And but then there are other, if say it's for a stool or a skin, you don't just say, I'm a member of this community, so I can also sell the land. Or it means by default, I own the land. No, you don't. It is held in trust for the stool or the skin by the chief. And
we've not seen people who would create chief portfolio for themselves.
That is why I started by saying that get a lawyer, because even to ascertain whether or not, so there was a case I was reading recently, to ascertain whether or not the person is a chief or how do they call those who are head of skins? If the person is the head of the skin, I'm sure I'm not saying it right, but the head of stool or the head of skin, there is a process by which you ascertain whether or not the person is right. I was reading a case recently, and then a transfer was set aside because the person who purported to have sold the land was not the right chief.
Yes.
And they acted promptly. And the court actually said that because of the prompt action by the members of the community, the title had to be set aside. The transfer, had to be set aside.
Means the person didn't have the capacity.
Exactly. If you had gotten a lawyer, the lawyer will tell you that, okay, let's verify if this person is actually a chief. Then let's go ahead and talk to the elders and those who he's supposed to act in consent with.
But does it mean there are no instances where, in good faith, another person would authorize like a third party?
Oh, there are. I believe there are.
There are so many real estate companies who don't necessarily own the land.
Yeah.
They serve as agents of the owners of the land, particularly families and then stools, so that they facilitate the transaction. By the end of the day, the person to sign the conveyance, the person to sign the indenture, the person to sign the instrument of transfer will be the chief or the head of family. Just that the negotiations, the processes involved in the acquisition, you deal with the company. But even that one, you would have to check if the company is actually an incorporated company that you can trace. If anything happens, you have to know how they came into contact with, that family and all those things. That's why we talked about due diligence. It's very important. Don't do it on your own. Don't think you are a local boy and so you know everything there.
So in the circumstance where, because I've seen heads of families, you have certain heads who are calm, reasonable in terms of performing their duties and responsibilities. But you also have certain heads, family heads, who are very stubborn, very unreasonable. So what happens where the head of family is maybe unreasonably refusing to execute the transaction?
He is the head of the family. The law gives him that power that if he doesn't execute and they sell the land without him, that particular transaction is void. As to whether he wants to execute or not, leave it for the family and the stool. Yeah. It has nothing to do with you. You want to sell. He is fighting with his people. He says he won't sign. So if he will not sign, why would you go ahead with it? Yeah. Yours is to ensure that he signs. And that is when you pay money. If he says he will not do it, why go ahead with it? It means that there's a problem within the family.
It's a big red flag.
Because why would you want to still go ahead with the transaction when
the main character is telling you I will not sell?
And you are saying I still want to buy. You would definitely find one Ejeku there saying that I will make sure that he signs. Don't worry, give me the money.
Definitely.
Give me the money. So if you are not smart enough and you think that, in every family there's one person who knows how to go around things, you give him the money. Later, you will not find him.
Okay.
So, to summarize what we've said, basically, when land belongs to a family and you want to acquire it, you have to ascertain whether or not the person from whom you are acquiring it is the head of the family. Mm-hmm. And even with that, the head of the family must act with the consent of the principal members of the family.
Exactly.
Same with stool lands, the head of the stool acting with the consent of the principal elders. So you may be asking yourself, how will it show if there's a dispute that arises? How will it show that it was the head of the family who acted with the consent of the principal elders? I think the best way you can do it is to ensure that the principal elders witness the conveyance.
So you have to ensure they should all sign.
Yes, they should all sign. That will make it very strong for you.
And to add quickly, I was making an earlier point about a wrong chief, a person who purported himself to be a chief. There was a contradicting case I also read. I just want to clarify it. There was a contradicting case I also read that the person was gazetted as a chief, but the person was not supposed to be the chief. And a third party bought the land in good faith.
Yeah.
The court allowed it to go through.
Yes, because if he has been gazetted, at that point, the issue was not whether or not he was the right person to sell. The issue was whether or not he was a chief, a right chief. And that is not about the land.
The land.
So whoever is contesting that the person was not the chief should go to court for a declaration that he is not a chief. It has nothing to do with you because at that time you were someone who bought the land in good faith and you paid money for it.
Yeah.
That's what we call equities darling. You are a darling.
Even with going to courts, you can't just go to any court. There are tribunals that deal with chieftaincy disputes.
Exactly.
You can't go to the high court or the
Exactly.
secretariat. You
Like
have
the
to
forum
go
is
to
also very
The
important.
forum is very important.
Okay. So I'd like us to talk about environmental compliance.
Right.
Do you just lead your clients to acquire property or land just anywhere?
So there is an issue I'm facing right now. A friend of mine acquired a land in a waterlogged area, which was properly demarcated to be a waterlogged area. He saw the land, price was good, everything was good. He said he was on the land several times. Nobody came to make any claim on the land. Went ahead and paid for it. Now it's time to register the land. And then the Lands Commission tells us, oh, you can't register this land. It is waterlogged and it has been demarcated.
I'm sorry, but you can't register.
I'm sorry, but it can't be made into your name.
Yeah.
And the guy is applying for a mortgage right now to build on the land. And the last thing, he's at the last stage, the last thing we need is just for the name, the title of the land to be moved into his name. And it's not happening.
No.
And he has paid very good money.
They have a duty. I think Lands Commission has a duty that, in my view, is rightly upholding that duty in this circumstance.
Yeah. And I told him, if you had informed me earlier, before acquiring this land, we wouldn't be in this problem. And then he keeps saying,
Maybe he knew an area
he
boy.
got 3 area boys who said, oh, I can get you the land. I know the chief personally. I know this personally. And I can make them sign it for you.
Yeah.
And this is the problem we are facing right now.
It's actually very important because sometimes, for instance, the purpose for which a land is being acquired is, let's say, for industrial purposes. But you lead the person to go and purchase land in an area which is earmarked for domestic or residential settings. So we must take those environmental compliances very seriously. Is there anything you want to add, Davina?
Yeah, like you said, we have to take it very seriously because it may be earmarked for what you want to do, but because you didn't do the necessary environmental checks, you will not get the benefits of the land. It can happen when maybe the land is situated in a flood-prone area and all of that. So it's very important to
imagine someone buying a land at the industrial area to build his house, his dream house.
So this actually leads me to one of the last things I want us to talk about. What happens, or I want one of you to highlight the effect, obviously negative effects of putting yourself in unfortunate circumstances like these where you purchase or you acquire property without doing the necessary due diligence.
I think, so for me, I know of someone who has purchased the land from someone he thought was the right person without doing any due diligence. I know a lot of people.
Maybe he's a land guard.
So he purchased the land from someone he thought was the right person, and the family is now after him. The only advice I'll give to him is that you purchased the land from the wrong person. So you have to pay the family now at market value. And this was a land he purchased as far back as 2001, when the value was very negligible to him.
Yeah.
Now, he has to pay good money. And he's angry because why did they wait? He had not showed any sign of possession. He purchased the land, He purchased the land and left. And then showed no sign of possession. Now he comes back to build his dream house.
And he's
Then
facing issues.
he's facing issues. And now the only advice I give to him is that, Charlie, all you have to do is to pay the family again at today's market value. The best we can do for you is to negotiate so that they
That's good advice, right? That's good advice. I think the lesson here is that before
don't
you
engage
purchase
area
the-
boys.
No, before you purchase the property, make sure you engage a lawyer. But in
Yeah.
the events where you rely on representations made by area boys and you get into trouble, the lawyer can still save you.
Yes, the
Okay. A lot of times, and most importantly, our clients are in the position to acquire assets, and they face challenges when it comes to financing the said acquisitions. Sometimes they have some small money, they don't necessarily have all. What are some of the schemes we can come up with to look at the property financing when it comes to acquiring lands?
Okay, so one of the schemes is mortgages. I think is the clearest.
The well-known.
Yeah, it's the well
When you
known.
say a mortgage, what do you mean?
So a mortgage is basically a security on property, which is used to ensure performance of an obligation. So now, if you are using a mortgage to acquire your property, the security is the property you are going to acquire, and the obligation you have to perform is to pay back the mortgagee. You become the mortgagor because you are the one using your property as security. And the person giving you the money to acquire your property becomes the mortgagee.
But isn't it like complex things? Because people, once they hear a mortgage, they're thinking about interest, how title passes. Doesn't mean the property is not mine until like I've paid off everything
No,
and things like that.
that's not it. So even when you get a mortgage, you are still the owner of the property. Actually, the law protects the mortgagor to a huge extent. You are the owner of the property for a very long time until you default in performing your obligations, and then the mortgagee takes the necessary actions to ensure that you perform your obligation. And one of the actions is through the court, and then your property will now be sold by auction or otherwise to ensure that you acquire your money.
So thank you very much. This brings us to
Oh, we are done.
this brings us to the
Yeah,
end.
enjoying it.
I was actually now zooming into it.
Be now you warm up. Thank you very much. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. And as we are all aware, the advice we give here is the same things we say all the time. Before you put yourself in such situations, make sure you talk to a lawyer, you talk to the necessary industry experts to do the right thing. Thank you for watching today's episode.